Since time immemorial, people have been sold ideas and products that are going to fix every single problem in their entire life, and all you need to buy is this one thing, okay? And some of those things are legit. Probably. And some of them have come from science and we've learned from them. And then some of them are just total scams. If we're just meeting, hello, I'm Liz. I'm a family nurse practitioner and I work in primary care. And this video is going to be how I respond to my patients when they ask me about the latest trending medical thing on social media, whether that's true or it's misinformation, a device they bought because someone on Facebook swore that it would fix their AFib, or even like supplements that just don't have great double-blind studies behind them and we don't always know what's in them. In this video, we're going to cover the 4 major response types I have when people bring this stuff to me. So first will be how I respond when I have no idea what they're talking about and I've never heard of it. 2, we'll talk about when things don't have as much clinical utility as we need in the situation, but they are somewhat effective. 3, I'll go over what I do when things are actively harmful. And the 4th category is things that don't necessarily help, but they don't hurt either. But first, let's go over some basic do's and don'ts that I've come up with to help me navigate these situations. First, do thank them. Whenever someone is bringing something like this to you, whether to ask you about it or just to let you know, like, hey, I started doing this, that disclosure to you is them trusting you. And with the current healthcare environment, you should honestly thank them for that, because not a lot of people trust their healthcare providers. And honestly, there's a decent reason for that. So thank them for just trusting you with that information. When I say it, it looks something like this. Thank you for asking me to weigh in on that. Number 2, do not roll your eyes. Do not immediately just say, oh, it's an internet scam and drop it. Do not act annoyed. The biggest frustration that I hear from patients about other healthcare providers is that they have felt blown off, dismissed, or just made to feel dumb for even bringing something to them. Number 3, do remind yourself that your role as a primary care provider or whatever kind of healthcare you work in, your goal is to be someone's guide, not their parent, not their final decision maker. You're their guide. The way I see it is I am here as a primary care person to tell people what to expect coming forward with diagnoses or preventative care, whatever is lying ahead that I can see. It's my job to give them all of their clinical options. And it's also my job to give them recommendations of what I think they should do in their situation while still letting them pick and make the ultimate decision. And patients are allowed to make decisions that you yourself would not make. I know that one can be tricky to mentally absorb. They are allowed to make what you would deem a bad decision with their own body. The goal, at least in my eyes, of this relationship between you and your patient, or me and my patient, is a long-term relationship that will be built on trust. I want them to keep coming back to me so that they ask me questions and I can give them evidence-based answers, because I might be the only person in their world that's giving them evidence-based information. And our 4th do is do be curious. When I first started working as a nurse, the best advice any preceptor ever gave me was just be curious in all situations, be willing to learn from your patients and every single environment that you come in contact with. All of those people have something that you can learn from. And that is probably still the best advice I've ever received in healthcare. I have learned an insane amount of things from my patients because they are the experts of their own bodies and of their own, especially with like complex medical conditions. They're by far the expert over me. So I learn stuff from people all the time, but you have to go in with like a curious, open mind in order to learn from it. All right, now that we have the basic do's and don'ts down, let's go over how I respond to the 4 situations that I most commonly see when it comes to wellness remedies, supplements, and pseudoscience type stuff. Starting with if I have never ever heard of this situation in my life, I'll say I'm actually not familiar with that. As my homework this week, I am going to write that down and learn about it. Then I will go and make myself a sticky note, write their name down on it and what I'm looking up. And after I have done a little research, whether it's like a podcast or searching however you want to search, you don't have to go in crazy depth, but just familiarize yourself with it. Maybe you'll find a new rabbit hole that's legit. Write it down. And then I write a note in the chart, however you want to do that. Mine's like a little alert, and I'll write my basic findings down so that when I do see them again, it pops up and I'm like, oh, I was going to talk to Jeremy about licking spearmint leaves. And is that actually helpful to regulate his bowels? Then you're actually following through and closing that loop, building a little bit of trust with them that like, oh, she actually did look into that. If it's something that's wildly harmful, I call them much quicker. I'm like, hey, please stop doing whatever you're doing. But most of the time it ends up being a situation of like, hey, remember how you asked me if spearmint leaves would help? I am not so sure that will. And we can go from there. But again, it showed that you were curious, and maybe they'll come back to you with more questions, which is the ultimate goal. And if you're like, oh man, that's a lot of work for one thing. Yeah, but someone else is going to ask you about it, right? Because these things all come in cycles. And you can be like, I actually have looked into that. And here's my answer. So it's worth it now. It's worth it for future you. And who knows, it might lead you to an absolutely great discovery. Next, here's what I say when the patient is bringing me something, usually a supplement, and that supplement is going to be mildly effective at treating the concerns that they have, but a different treatment modality provides much more therapeutic benefit, and they would really benefit from that increased therapeutic benefit. An example of this that I deal with a lot would be like berberine for lowering blood sugar. Does berberine help lower blood sugar? It can, yes. Does it lower it enough for someone whose hemoglobin A1C is 9? Most likely, no. They likely, if their A1C is 9, are going to need some additional agents in order to get their blood sugar back in a range where it's not doing end organ damage. Here's an example of what I would say in that situation. There's definitely data that berberine can help lower blood sugar, which is awesome. There are also other treatment options, such as medication, in addition to lifestyle changes that offer more benefit to your blood sugar and can help keep you healthy in the short and long term. And then you can provide specific treatments and recommendations for that patient and how severe things are. Maybe it's not a huge deal. Maybe you can try one and then we can kick in the other suggestions later. Or maybe it's really time, like with a hemoglobin A1C of 9, where we really need to bring in other troops other than just berberine. You are at this point going to tailor it very much to them and their situation and what they're willing to work with. Okay, now the third situation. What happens when someone is bringing you a treatment or an idea, a supplement, a wellness thing that is actively dangerous to them? And this can be medically dangerous to them or financially dangerous to them. People come to me all the time and tell me that they found this program or this supplement or this treatment online and it's very, very expensive, but they are willing to do it at this point if it helps, which I think automatically should be like a huge red flag that like, holy moly, things are severe enough that they are this desperate in order to try to fix what's going on. And we really need to take a better look at what's going on here. And I would honestly say with this whole category that the financial danger tends to be the more common thing. Certainly people can have physical danger from these things, but overwhelmingly I have seen people be manipulated by marketing on these things to be taken advantage of money-wise, right? And I think conversations like this where people are vulnerable and being taken advantage of, I think these are the hardest to have. Because within it, you're telling them like, hey, I know you think this is a good idea, but I really don't. And with that comes a lot of like shame and power imbalance potentially for them because they feel like it can easily turn into them feeling like they're being scolded. And that is in no way ever what I want. I've also had people feel like they were feeling dumb for like, oh man, why did I fall for that after we've talked about it? And that's a terrible feeling as a patient. So I really try to be cognizant of that as I approach this while still firmly saying like, I really don't think that this is a good idea. And so this is what I've landed on. I have never seen any solid data to show that this thing has any benefit. And honestly, I am worried that you are being taken advantage of. And if it's like a money thing, I would finish with something like, hey, I really think that this is a money grab and I wouldn't recommend it. And if it's medically dangerous, I would say, this is what I'm worried is going to happen to you if you follow this path. I don't think you'll see the results you want. I think it actually could cause more harm, and you could go into what that harm would be. And ultimately, the most important thing I think about this conversation is that we end with, I would love to figure this out more with you. And if you have that money to spend, maybe there's something else to spend that money on in order to help get you the answers or the results that you would like. And just to give you like a concrete example, some of the dangerous things I'm thinking of are like all the cleanses. I have seen parasite cleanses that people will convince you need and then sell you that are hundreds of dollars and you're buying it for everybody in your family. I would say like a lot of the IV situations that you can buy probably fall into this category where you're coming in for all these different drips. I'm sure you're thinking of many, many different medical grifts that are out there that will try to sell you on a benefit that is simply not there because people know that they can prey on vulnerable people, and boy, howdy, do they. Let's move on to our last one because this one's a little bit nicer. What do I say when people are bringing me supplements, wellness treatments, all that? And it's not really helpful, but it doesn't really hurt. It's kind of like a neutral situation. And when we're in that in-between territory, I'll be like, there's no solid evidence that that is super helpful, but also it doesn't seem really harmful. So if it's working for you, keep on keeping on. As long as it's not like a huge financial burden, sure. If you feel weird while you're taking it, stop. and keep me posted on how it goes. Because, if something doesn't have exquisite data behind it, maybe we just haven't discovered it yet. If it's helping them, the placebo effect is not to be underestimated, okay? And if it's not financially harmful to them, if it's not physically harmful to them, and it's doing its thing and their brain is like, yes, go for it. Could you come down on it and say like, don't do that, it's not evidence? Sure. But I want them to remember that I am on their side. And if something is not actively harmful, I'm not going to lie and over exaggerate how unharmful it is. You do you. I am on your team. We're just trying to get you feeling good and live a long and happy, healthy life, right? Sure. You drink that celery juice. If it pleases you, enjoy. Now, pop quiz. What is our new mantra? Think back to the beginning. Stay curious. Let's be curious about why are people searching for miracle cures on the internet? It's probably because they don't feel good and they are desperate. We should help them with that. 2, second, you can be curious about how the encounter went. You can be like, hey, do you feel like you understand it better? Is there any other questions you have about this? All right, before they leave, make sure you're all on the same page and that they know you're on their team. And you really do want to find out more about this for them. And 3, just be curious in general about science and, new modalities of things that might be coming out that maybe you will discover this way. Maybe electrifying yourself through your belly button is how you cure Crohn's disease. Okay? Don't do that. Please don't do that. That was a joke, but you never know. Science has to start somewhere. Now, before class is dismissed, I did want to talk just a tiny bit about why are healthcare providers a lot of times really grumpy when people do bring them supplement ideas or these wellness treatment modalities, all of these things. First, we just don't want you to get hurt, okay? Or financially scammed. And I think people can easily sell you things with really strong language of like, this fixes this. You'll notice healthcare people we don't talk like that because we don't know. It's frustrating to feel like you're constantly fighting that misinformation with patients because you are being honest and saying like, this might help versus influencer being like, this will help. And they manipulate data a lot. And it just feels like you're fighting a losing battle. We only have 15 minutes with people. You can watch 5 hours of their content. It's frustrating time-wise, right? And none of this justifies blowing people off. You should never blow patients off. You should always justify what they're feeling and figure out more about them. I'm just saying like, this is why I think that this comes through. So first, it's just like frustration that people are being taken advantage of. And the second is insurance companies monitor a lot of data about the patient. So your healthcare system is reporting how many people's blood pressure is within range, how many people's blood sugar is within range, cholesterol is within range. And if you don't have enough of your patients within what they deem the appropriate parameters, they won't pay the healthcare office for that visit that you had, or they certainly will not pay the full price. They will say, hey, you have X number of patients whose cholesterol is too high. And then you go to your patient, you say, hey, if we lower your cholesterol, here's a medicine that can help you with that. And they say, I'm not going to do that. I want to try this instead. Now you have all of these people that are on your panel that are out of range, right? Because those supplements or whatever might not get you within range. And then your healthcare institution is coming at you and they're yelling at you for not meeting all of these targets. And they're hounding you with more emails. They're saying, why aren't you getting your patients under control? Which is really a backwards way of thinking about it, right? Because we're here to guide people, but that is not how the insurance companies see it. And it leads to a lot of frustration. And that's why people get dismissed from practices a lot. If you've ever heard of people getting dismissed for not wanting to take a certain medication for cholesterol or their blood pressure, it's because they're falling outside of those parameters and they don't want to accept that liability because they're not going to get paid from the visit from the insurance companies. So once again, everything leads back to insurance companies are evil and the bane of our healthcare system. But that's a little bit why people can get frustrated because then it's like, oh my gosh, now I have someone else who might not be within parameters and just because they want to do something differently and it's Anyway, on that super happy note, let me know if you phrase anything like this differently, especially the ones when you're like, no, please don't do that. Those conversations make me feel like I want to puke. Hope this gave you some new phrases that you can add into your practice. Remember that you are enough. You can have these conversations. You are not alone. We are all out there fighting that battle with you and you can do hard things. Have a great day, friends. I'll see you next time. Bye.